Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to the STP training webinar, Testing Problems That Have Remained Unsolved. Our speaker for the day is Pradeep Soundararajan. I'm Smita Mishra, a professional tester myself, and I'm excited to host you all and Pradeep on our STP trainings. Incidentally, Pradeep has also been a Luminary Award winner at the last STP Conference Awards. We typically give this award to the leading practitioners in the field to recognize their contributions to the subject and the community at large. We hope to see you speak at our upcoming conferences, Pradeep. And for all our listeners today, let me tell you, we have our next conference coming up, Spring 2018 STPCon, to be held in the Newport Beach, California from April 9th through 12th next year. Our program committee has already started to review the submissions and shall start filling the slots soon. Our keynotes have just got finalized and will be out for you all very soon. The program is really going to be super exciting. The conference topics are spread across a wide range like automation, agile, performance, DevOps, mobile, security, leadership, strategy, and so much more. We have closed our submissions for this conference, but if you are interested in participating in the future ones, do visit stpcon.com/submit to submit your proposals. As STP is now expanding its offerings, we are coming up with the new STP membership programs and other offerings. So the details shall be out soon. Keep looking for it. As a tester myself, I find conferring to be one of the best ways to learn and also to get to know the reputed testers across the globe. It has helped me build my network, my connections in the subject matter expertise. And I would want you all to try the same too. The registrations for the Spring Conference 2018 will be open shortly. I suggest you all to have a look at stpcon.com and join us there. You will also be receiving updates, email updates from us time to time about the same. So keep a note of that. If you are on Twitter, please share about this webinar with your followers, connections, and also about the conference. We love the shout outs. So if you hear something you like during the webinar, please tweet it. And you can use Software Test Pro, that's our handle, for a retweet from us. Another quick piece of information that I have for you is that there is an upcoming webinar, Automated Exploratory Testing, by Justin Eisen on 22nd of November. Justin is a senior success engineer at Applitools, and he's passionate about test automation. He loves finding new and efficient ways to improve software quality with software. It'll be a great opportunity for you to learn from this experience, from his experience, The link is up for you to review and register, so go for it. All right, let's get started with the webinar today. A very warm welcome, Pradeep. We are very thrilled to have you with us today. And let me quickly introduce you for all of us here. Pradeep Soundararajan loves solving testing problems. He loves it to the extent that he has traded tons of money to remain in testing. He started off as a tester and then became an independent consultant and built Mulia Testing, a niche testing services company. And now in parallel to all of that, he's also building App-Achi. That's an AI-driven app testing platform in real user conditions. He likes to be called Panda, and never before has a panda been so loved. Absolutely, he's a very popular tester in India. And globally, I'm sure he's got a lot of followers. Okay, so right before we start, few housekeeping points for all of us for next 1 hour. All the attendees shall remain muted through the webinar. You can type in your questions and share them with us through your question box. We shall take them up after Pradeep is done with his presentation, or if he asks for it in between. You are free to post your questions through the webinars, throughout the webinar, And the webinar will be recorded and posted on the Software Test Pro site for the attendees to go through later. Okay, Pradeep, a very warm welcome again, and the floor is all yours now.
Hey, thank you very much. And it's just amazing for me to sit here and imagine there are at least about 60 people out there listening to me. So I have to close my eyes and imagine there's an audience in front of me, and then I have to speak. So that's how webinars work. And it's quite exciting. So I I think I should start sharing my screen. Great. Okay. Show this window. So, okay, Smita, you can give me a feedback if you're able to see the full screen of my intro slide. You're able to. Great. Okay, awesome. So, okay, here I am, and I'm very happy to speak about this. And I must tell you about a little bit about my journey. If I were to say, you know, how my journey has been in the testing space so far. So, I started to learn testing.
Pradeep, just a quick thing. You may not be on presentation mode. Do you want to present it like that? I can see the slide layout on the right. Or do you want to make it full screen?
Okay, so what is not showing anything? Now I can.
Yeah, this is better.
Oh, great. Oh, great. Okay. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much for that correction. So okay, look at that. So I was just beginning to tell you about my testing journey, and I think I started learning testing very seriously, and I'm sure the popular names come up, James Bach and Michael Bolton. It's very hard for me to disassociate myself from the experience that I've had from being trained by them. And I started to implement that over in India. And whenever I showed some real cool stuff in the testing space, my customers, my employers, my colleagues used to say, "Oh, Pradeep, you can do that, but others can't do it." Or, "You can do that. Getting a team of people to do like that is difficult." So I took up a challenge and said, "You know what? I really think that a team can do like this. It's just that they have to be trained right." So I coached a team, and I got that team to deliver a project, and then in a very large organization, super large organization, and then the conversation shifted to saying, "Oh, Pradeep, this team can do it, but we can't do it at a scale of 100 testers." So that's when I started to think about, hey, I think I can coach people, get them, and get it to scale. So that's how my services company was born, where I thought that I could scale, and there were people asking me about how to scale the good testing, and I thought I could build a business around it. And okay, that's how my services company was born. Now, when I was building the services company, I realized that what these people were talking about. They were talking about a problem. And the journey of building 100 good testers, I know it's an incredibly hard journey. But that's exactly what I wanted to do. So I'm very, very happy to do that. Now, how do I scale this goodness to a larger audience? And when I began to focus on trying to scale the little good testing that I knew, I faced a whole lot of problems. And that's when I started to look at the testing problems that have remained unsolved. And I got to take you through a little bit of what I think is testing and why it came to existence. I think it came to existence because the business started to get hit from the market, from the users, from the customers, saying that something is not working, and people started questioning the value and questioning the quality. So people started to think that, hey, we need a team which is dedicated to think and tell us that these are the customer environments and devices, and these are the challenges that come up in those things. Now, what value is testing bringing to business? The goal and the aim is that we are playing a role of risk informers. So we inform them of risks as testing was born out of a business need to inform people much in advance. We became risk informers, and we started to report problems that could occur in the field and support in getting it fixed. Now, if that's the case, If that's the case, why are businesses chopping testers? Now, I know, so I was at a Yahoo quality conference, my first keynote experience. I was so happy. There were like 100+ testers in India, and there was the managing director of Yahoo who flew from the US, who came to India to tell one message to all the QE folks, saying that, you know what, we are so serious about quality. You people are going to be here. There's going to be a great growth and all of that stuff. Exactly 1 week, after that thing happened, they let go of all the testers, and I was laughing there, sitting, saying that, hey, you know what? Last week you told that these people are so important to you. How come in a week they became okay, so unimportant? Not even a single one. Everybody wanted to go out, or they were not ready to retain, or they were asked to be moved to a different role. And so if businesses need testers, why are businesses chopping testers? So who tests the value that's coming out of testing? Now that's a related question. I think it's the business that has been testing the value from the testing teams. And when, I think when they're chopping off testers, or the QE or the QA or whatever they want to call it as, I think it is a case where they have not seen significant business value to retain them. Now I know that while Yahoo was actually chopping off the QE team, they did retain most of their developers. So I think that where they see a direct value, they want to retain. So the goal is, how do we show that the testing is a direct value and not an indirect value? So is there a problem here? In a Ben Simo style, yes, there is not a problem here. There are a number of problems here, and I know that the problems that I'm going to share with you, some of which you're going to agree, some of which you're going to disagree to, and I'm absolutely fine with that. So problem number one is the scale of the problem itself. Now, every time I talk about these problems, so let's assume I specifically say, oh, there is the pass-fail issue, right? So the pass-fail issue has been plaguing us for a long time, and we want to get rid of it, and we want to show value, but the businesses understand just the pass-fail, right? So in terms of the scale of the problem, most businesses do only understand the pass-fail from the testing, and they think that anything that they want, that they can be automated, and then they want just a pass-fail number to make a decision. Now, we as test practitioners, we know that there's so much more to do in testing. There is so much of value. There is so much of test coverage that I can show. There's a lot great story that I can tell. But unfortunately, the business people do not have the time, or do not have the patience, do not have the attention span that is required to listen to our story. So there are a few places. Now the reason I'm talking about the scale of the problem is I know there are good organizations. There are a lot of organizations who are giving a good ear to testing. They value testing, and they understand the value that they can get out by giving the necessary opportunity for the tester to speak out. But being in India, being in a population of 1.2 billion, and maybe while I'm speaking it's becoming 1.3, I think that I see a scale problem here. I see a massive scale problem here. So a lack of framework for exploratory testing that scales. Now, when I was trained by James Bach and Michael Bolton on all the crazy great stuff that they do, I was super excited. I was like, man, this is the testing. This is, and if I didn't have that education, I would have quit testing, because there was no reason to stay in a non-intellectual field. There's nobody who wants to stay in a non-intellectual field. So the reason for me to stay in this field, the reason for me to persist in this field, is because I have seen the value that that can come out of the intellectual thought process and the value I can contribute to the business by doing exploratory testing, by doing rapid testing. But here's the big problem, right? That doesn't scale. Now I know Michael Bolton might be listening to this and saying, what are you saying, Pradeep? Yes, Michael Bolton, that's exactly what I'm saying. You have great thought processes. You have great thought processes. That has helped me. That has helped me scale a few things. But we need a scale that is much larger than the scale that we have built. And that's what I'm talking about. We need a really large scale. So problem number 3, testing that business does not understand is not of value. So I see that in Mulya, I'll tell you a specific story. A lot of testers were coming out with app performance profiling report. Now they used a tool like let's say a Little Eye or an Android studio, and they came up with great graphs, great analysis, and all that stuff. Now, and this kept happening for many years. So we hired a consultant who is a specialist on app performance profiling. And then when he came, he consulted for us. This one question that he asked: what action has your customers taken on all these great reports that you've provided? There was hardly any action taken. So it became that we were spending a lot of time, and it was just one small value add, like your caller tune. You can live without your caller tune. You can still live with the tring tone, right? But it became just a super value add, and we were thinking that we are adding so super value. So there are a lot of things that the testers today do, passionate testers today do, that people in the business are not understanding, and this has become a big problem. So the testers think they're doing a great job, but the businesses think that, hey, it's not of great value, and I don't know how to use this value. So the problem number 4, good education for testers has not scaled. Now, having been a recipient of the education that I'm talking about, and having seen things like the VBST courses, which are really awesome, and anybody who goes through the courses say this is just too good, but the education that is really scaled is crappy education. So if you go to a place in let's say Secunderabad, which is okay, near Hyderabad, you will see tons of training institutes. You should go take a look at the YouTube videos. The kind of education that's being given to the fresh people outside of the college is so pathetic that we are creating poor testers and scaling poor testing. So I think that one of the biggest problems that we've had is good education for testers is not scaled. Now, the problem number 5, testing has become a tech-only function. Okay, look at it. The business invented or discovered the testing to help them, and they handed it over to the product teams. The product teams didn't know how to use the value of the testing teams, and they've handed it over to the tech teams. So today, most of the VP engineering, the CEO, think that the testing and the QA belongs to them, and those who come from a dev background try to convert everything into a programming problem. So for them, testing is a programming problem, a QA is a programming problem, and that's the reason why we see that there is so much of obsession towards automation, right? And then problem number 7. Interestingly, I had a problem number 6, which I didn't want to share. So I thought I should say problem number 7 and I'd still give problem number 6 its own chance. Bad testing overshadows great testing. Now, I know in this world, there's a lot of great testing that happens, but the general impression of testing is created by the scale of bad testing that happens. Even today, how many times have you been asked, is there a future for testing? And this question is like a plague. It keeps coming back. Generations after generations after generations of testers keep asking this. Why do people ask this? Why don't people say, is there a future in software development? I haven't come across that question. Is there a future in trying to be a CEO? Okay, people have not asked that question, but this is one place where this question keeps coming back. I've answered it 100 times, and I and I have tons of problems answering that over and over again, and I see that it's going to be different people but the same question. So can we solve it? I am in the belief that we can solve it, and the first thing that comes to my mind in order to solve it is to think scale. We come up with a lot of great ideas, but those ideas are great at a person specific level, at a team specific level, and I think what we need is ideas that scale. So there are a number of things. There are a number of great things that some of our great leaders in the testing space have shared, but they have not scaled. Sad ISTQB has scaled. Well, irrespective of how good or how bad it is, I don't want to get into that debate. That's scaled. That is scaled, and I want to see good testing scale much larger than ISTQB, right? And in terms of so how do we get there? One of the aspects could be build tools to guide the human mind. Now, when I was going through rapid software testing training, and with a lot of sessions with James and Michael, they introduced me to this concept called guide word heuristics. Now, if you look at guide word heuristics, there are guide word heuristics and there are actually trigger heuristics. So using these guide word heuristics and the trigger heuristics, I am able to guide my testing. I'm able to trigger the right kind of ideas for the right context. Now, why can't we put this into a tool? I know it can't replace a human tester. I am not looking to replace a human tester. I am only looking to provide an Iron Man suit to an Iron Man. That's been the focus. So I think we should build more Iron Man suits in order to help the human mind think in direction of adding great value. And the solution 3, community with a scale focus. Now today we do have communities of testers, we do have groups. STPCon itself is a great place for collaboration with the testers and like-minded people. But in most of the conferences that I've attended, there are case studies that, hey, this is what worked for me. I've sat through case studies, I've shared my own case studies, but let me ask you, how many of us have been able to go and replicate, and at what scale? So we all clap for a practice working for somebody. We all say, yes, it's context driven, and we come back to our thing, and what have we delivered to the world that can scale? So I think that while there is a lot of value that we have already built, we have not scaled that value. So together as a community, we need to get together and focus on coming up with solutions that scale. So the outcome is again scale. The outcome when we do this kind of thought process is actually scale. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you an example of actually one such, right? So okay, so here's the thing that I built. So here's a platform that I built, which guides the tester. We all say testers should question things. Testers should know the models that they're choosing. We have a lot of mnemonics. We have so many mnemonics. You know what? When we try to collect the mnemonics in our company, we discovered there are like 100, 200 models and mnemonics that we can actually put together. Now, how much of it are we able to put together? So for example, this is a sample platform that we created, for our internal use, and it starts by saying, upload a new build, let's say for an app context, and says, what do you want the focus to be? You want it as a quick check, you want it for finding bugs, you want it for regression. What changed in this build? Now you see, these are questions that the testers are supposed to ask. Most often, we think that the testers are asking these questions, but when we see failures, that's when we realize that the testers have failed to ask these questions. Now, let me tell you this: when testers go through this, day in, day out, and they say, what changed in this build? What changed in this build? and you remove this tool, you remove this platform, okay, from them, you will see that their mind automatically channels to say, what changed in this bill, right? And so, okay, here's something on. So in terms of the coverage, okay, so we say, what features would you like to test? What devices would you like to test on? What browsers you want to test on? What networks you want to test on? So this gives them an awareness that they are making a conscious choice of the coverage. This is helping them to choose and make the choices. Now imagine when they make the choice of saying, okay, these are the choices I'm making, the platform tells them, these are the questions, so these are the things that you have actually selected, and this is what's happening in the customer environment, and your coverage will be compromised with these choices. Do you still want to go ahead? And the tester says, oh no, I want to make a change towards this. So you see, I'm not replacing a tester. I am just making the Iron Man have a suit to fly better, to save the world. So, okay, what's your focus on? And then what are the risks and what are the assumptions? So every time when we capture this for every cycle of test, people are aware that they're conscious of the assumptions that they're making. And then when a test lead or when somebody is reviewing their testing, their story comes out. These are the choices I made. These are the risks that I saw. These are the assumptions that I made, and hence I see a certain thing. Now, in terms of, let's say, strategy. Now, as I spoke about, Ben Simon, he has a model called failure for testing the error messages. Right now, that's a great model, and I've seen that 99% of the testers that I have seen do not know about the model, nor do they use the model. So if you provide them a platform like this, that for every feature that they want to test, they have options to select the model, and their selections come up here, and then they could do an analysis and say, hey, there are 36 models available, you have been selecting only these 3 models. This gives a feedback to the management, to the company, saying these testers need education on these models, these coverage aspects, and all of that stuff. Oh, and then there is a coverage report that comes up like this, saying, okay, this is your selection, this is the way, or these are your failed past stuff, this is how it looks in a visual fashion, your selection and the results. It gives them a visual perspective of what they've covered, what they've not covered, and what they need to cover. Now, guess what? I am not like super great guy to come up with this that nobody else could come up with. I have just used a little bit of the education that I've had overall, and I've tried to come up with this platform. Okay, this platform, we have implemented this. I don't want to show a customer report, so I'm showing you a mock. So that's okay. So that's what it is, and I am done. Testing problems won't remain unsolved if we think in scale and if we think in this direction. Okay, thank you very much for your time, and I'm absolutely happy to get your questions. And you want to punch me, I'm all ready to take it up. Woohoo!
Hey, thanks, Pradeep. I'll just probably wait for another couple of seconds, like say about 30 seconds to a minute, for these people to send in their questions. Okay.
Sure. In the meanwhile, I can share some stories related to why I was talking about the scale. Serving a lot of customers, a lot of different contexts, has given me an exposure to the variety of problems that exist. And using this variety of problems that exist, and when I talk to more and more customers, I discover that I had a perception of what their problem was. And in reality, the problem that I thought was a problem and what the customer actually was experiencing as a problem were 2 different things. So no matter what kind of solutions that I came up with, it was not necessarily helping them. And I have got more great appreciation from my fellow testers for certain things, and then the customer thought, okay, that's just fine. And you know, that kind of hit me, because I was doing all of that for my customer, and if my customer is not able to get the value, then I started asking myself, what am I really doing? So that's an important incident that happened to me, in not just one project, into multiple projects. And then in terms of the understanding of the context. So as a context-driven tester, when I land myself on a project, the first few things that I do is to ask the context. Now, I initially thought I would ask the context and they would tell me and my job becomes easy. But there are skills, there are things that are needed where they say they have a problem versus the problem on the ground. It might be two different things. So the complexity that I perceive there's a problem, and the customer stating a problem, and the problem on the ground. So what problem should we solve? We should solve two problems, three problems, right? The problem on the ground, the perception of the customer of what the problem is, and the perception that we have of what the problem is. So I have largely benefited from reading Jerry Weinberg and his book, Are Your Lights On? And his workshop, Problem Solving Leadership. I've not attended the PSL one, but I've attended a mini version of that, which he did in one of the conferences. So, yeah, you can bring on the questions.
Thank you, Pradeep. Quite a few familiar names here. So it looks like Sigi Birgison. He's wanting to see the slide for problem number 5. He wants to know what was the problem number 5 and if he can see the slide again.
Problem number 5, sure, yeah. Yeah, so testing has become a tech-only function. And you know, and I was saying that the business teams and the product teams who also could derive good value out of you know, out of testing, have kind of outsourced testing to their tech teams. Now, I know in some organizations that's not the way it works, but I am talking of things that happen in scale. If that didn't happen, I would have not been talking about it. Or maybe I'm talking about it in the context of India. But I'm also working in the past. I've also worked with you know, customers who have outsourced their testing from the Western world, from the Eastern world as well. And I don't see much of a difference. For example, let's say banks. In banking, there is some amount of involvement of the business, you know, that happens. But these days, a lot of tech-savvy startups just can think that it is just a tech problem and not of the product owner and not of the business people. So, you know, there you go.
Okay, thanks, Pradeep. The next one is from Mike. He's asking, you've been building your organizations for years. So what are the traits you look for when hiring new testers for your organization?
Okay. I look for their ability to communicate. I look for their ability to gel with people. I look for their ability to think, and I look for their confidence. So, and then comes the testing, and then comes the tools, and then comes everything else. So in terms of my priority, I think those who can communicate have been able to influence people. And what is testing without influencing people? I have seen teams that have done a great job, but they're not able to influence, and then the whole value looked very poor. So for me, and what I keep telling my testers is, the measure of how good you have been is the influence you have on business, on product, on the technical space. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful response, Pradeep. I really like that. I pretty much think the same way. So thank you again. Here is our next question from Ramesh. He says, why is there a myth even from well-established companies about the future of testing as a cost center?
So as I was actually stating, I think overall we need a way where we can show a direct value from the testing teams. In many cases where testing has become a sub-function and somebody communicates the value of testing, and that somebody themselves do not understand testing, the best that they can communicate is that these many tests have passed. So that's what has been happening. Now, despite the size of the organization, when organizations can't see the direct value, it becomes a cost center. It becomes like a necessary evil. It becomes an insurance that you have to buy sometimes, even if you don't want that insurance. So what we need to do is to show them that here is the direct value. There are a lot of challenges to show that, and I think at large, we have not been able to show. There are some real good testers who do that. For example, when I was interacting with Rob Sabrin, and he was sharing with me the kind of reporting that he does, he gave me a lot of examples of how he shows a direct impact on the business. And what I've understood is, while I was a guy about 8 years ago who spoke that as testers we need to give them business value, it's till I did my business, I didn't know what business value meant. I had a perceived business value. So and I think it's hard for people who have not done a business to talk about business value. So this is a problem. But however, this can be solved with a few people who know what business value means, providing a framework of saying, hey, if you are testing in an e-commerce company and you're testing an e-commerce website, here is the business value. And I think John Bach does this really, really well. And I would love to see John Bach's ideas getting converted to a tool and getting distributed to all the testers. And there is a John Bach as a tool, because it has taken years and years for a John Bach to come into this world, and he is going to stay for several decades. And what after John Bach for this world? We have to wait for another John Bach to come. Hey, but there's already a John Bach available. We need to translate his thoughts, his ideas, his experiments into a platform that is scalable and is distributed across the world. And that gives also a good opportunity for John Bach to learn more from the usage of the world and improvise his own ideas. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Pradeep. Our next one is from Pratibhan. Pratibhan says, Pradeep mentioned bad testing shadows great testing. I'm curious to understand what's bad testing and what's great testing. To me, this thought process in itself is one of the problems. Still would like to hear the speaker's thoughts.
Okay, so that's a good question. Now, what is bad testing? If you are not knowing why you exist, if you are not knowing why you're testing something, and you're testing just because something was assigned to you, or just because there are these number of test cases that were documented, that is bad testing, because it's going for waste. It's like it's like bad blood. When the blood clots, the clot blood becomes useless, and it chokes the good blood from flowing. So a bad testing is like a blood clot. It is blood. It is the same blood, but it is now clot, and it is now going to block even the good one from flowing. So that's what I refer to as bad testing.
Okay, so the next one is from Sigi again, and he's saying, when you start to think about scale, no test problems will exist no more. So is there really value in the testing in itself? Isn't it more important to deliver a high quality product, and delivering a high quality product includes some great testing along the way? He continues to say, why do testers still in 2017 focus on testing in itself and not about helping teams deliver great products?
That's a very good question. I completely agree that we should focus on the purpose, and that's what that's what I've been talking about it as well. The purpose of why we came into existence and why we exist and why is somebody paying is to build a high quality product that helps customers solve their problems, and in turn they are happy to pay the price in exchange of getting their problem solved. So yes, everybody's focus should move towards that. And why are we still focusing on the testing is because if we do not solve this problem at a large scale, the problem comes back at testing. Now, there is in the so I've been to several conferences where the DevOps and Agile and everything was discussed, and what I found out was there is a certain culture, certain skill set, certain kind of people that can make Agile work. But the way things have happened is we have taken Agile, of what worked for some people, converted that into a practice, and proliferated successfully. And most of the people who have implemented Agile are actually struggling. I'm talking about the scale. I'm not talking about one or two good cases. At scale, now, so why does this problem happen? Because overall, for Agile to work, we need people who understand that software quality is everyone's responsibility, right? And unfortunately, the KRAs that's given, the way people are assessed, while people know that software quality is everybody's responsibility, there are individual KRAs, there are individual goals that contradict this thought process. So, for example, when the organization fails to understand that that the quality is everybody's responsibility, they give a goal for testers. They ask testers, how many bugs did you find? And why did you miss that bug? And they go to a developer and say, why is so many bugs coming out from your code alone, right? And these kind of questions, these kind of thought processes have caused this situation. Now, testing is one of the activities that helps improve the quality of the product. And I think that there is value for somebody to go deep in testing. But I see organizations are either on one side of the spectrum where they think that the tester themselves is not needed because anybody can test and everybody should test. And on the other side of the spectrum, they think that, hey, testers are the gatekeepers. So we are caught in these two spectrums largely. And I think we need to understand that testing helps when everybody understands the value. So as we do not have that kind of a construct within the companies, the culture, we are still talking about testing as an isolated activity, and that's not what I tried to do. I tried to see that if we solve these problems at scale, we will be in a situation where the tester's role now is at the next level, and not about finding regression issues, and not about running tests that have become obsolete. So yes, Siggy and I have been having this conversation, and I'm soon going to meet him in the RDIF conference, and I hope to talk to him about this with a beer.
Thanks, Pradeep. Our
Yes.
next one is from Geeta. She says, with a well-designed plan and strategy, sometimes we come across the situation to shorten the test cycle and expect it to achieve it, speed up testing with quality, and meet milestone. So she wants to know your suggestions on such circumstance, and she also wants to know, will choosing the models and have the test report get to achieve it?
Okay, good. So when the time is getting shrunk, which is what usually happens, most people try to accomplish what they plan to accomplish with the full availability of time within the shrunk time. And I think that's the reason why the pressure builds up. And also the expectation is that while the time is actually shrunk, the testing will be complete. So in these cases, what I've done and what I've advised to testers is to go back and tell people that by having the time reduced, there are fewer things that can be accomplished. Now, I do have the skill to look at the most important aspects and the high risk aspects and focus on that. But that would mean that there would be medium risk aspects and the low risk aspects that I will not be able to cover, and then get a common understanding that what when I say the test is complete, the test is complete for what? The test is complete for the high risk areas. So this is one way to address this problem. The other way to address this problem is also that sometimes I have to tell people that if they reduce a time beyond a certain time frame, it's just impossible to add any value. Okay, for example, if there is 1 second to run, how much distance will you cover? Does it really matter? So I think that there is a certain amount of time that is required to add certain value. Now, when we don't know what value we're adding, we will try to fit in everything we are doing with the shrunk time. But if we know what value we are adding, that will help us go back and tell the relevant people of what is it that we can contribute in the given time.
Absolutely. I think that's a point that, Pradeep, I would also like to reiterate that if you are being forced to compromise on the time you need to do a good level of testing, then I think you can clearly spell that out and tell that to the management that if you're going to cut short all the resources given to us in terms of time and any other resources, then it's just going to expose you to a higher risk. And
Absolutely.
you're not, yeah, that's the best way to go for.
And and as risk informers, uh, we can only inform them and and advise them of the risks, and it is still their decision to take that risk.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So our next question comes from Sumit. He says, looking at the current trend in testing industry, automation testing is much popular than manual testing. Okay. So what is the future of manual testing?
Mhm. So, okay, somebody asked this. Great. Okay, thanks a lot, Sumit. Uh, the future of manual testing. I'm uh, I'm I'm trying to build an AI-driven testing tool and a platform. And in this journey, I have seen just a little bit of what AI and automating the automation can do. And today we have made a solution where the automation that people are doing today can be automated. And if I see from this perspective of having built a solution like this, my question is, what is the future of automation? Right? What is the future of automation if script writing happens without the need of an SDET? So I am actually more concerned about people in automation than people in manual. One, but at the same time, I think after this kind of solutions come to the world, the only thing that will be left is manual testing. And that somebody who is calling themselves a manual tester needs to be really strong, because what a machine learning can do from analyzing a lot of data, it will find it will it will find a lot of things that are obvious that can be found through the machine. Now comes about what are the things that that only humans can do. Humans can now, for example, user experience. Only humans can tell if the other human will be in a position to use this in a way that is designed. So we need a lot of humans for the user experience testing. And my problem is, most of us think that we know what user experience testing is because we find some UI issues. But I think it's a deep subject in itself, and we have done very little study, on it. So the place is only going to be for those who go deep in manual testing and understand the different techniques and approaches to come up with coverage and issues that the AI automation is not able to capture. So I turn the question back on you. Now that you've heard that the automation can be automated, what is the future of automation? I want you to think about it and sleep really well tonight.
That was a good response, Pradeep. And I was actually, when I started to say that question, I was smiling because there's not a single meetup that goes here, which I attend, where we don't have this question about manual versus automation. So yes, it's kind of it's a question we have answered and kind of explained multiple times. But I think every other day, a good tester or a tester who's probably worried about his career thinks about whether should I learn automation to better my career, or am I going to be safe if I don't know automation? So I think that those fears lead to this question every time.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So our next question is, how do you suggest to someone how to handle a situation where they work in a company which may not share the same core beliefs about testing, how to conduct testing, and how to report testing? So how would you influence the organization to see your way?
Okay. I have been fired multiple times trying to do that. I have also been politely asked to leave. I have also been successful in some organizations. And when I look back at why I was fired and why I was asked to leave and why I was successful, I think it goes back to the culture of how people want to collaborate and how people see a common goal. So instead of solving a problem that has boiled up and people want it in a certain way, I think we should go back and address the culture problem, because there are great teams. Like, for example, if you look at Siggy's experience in Atlassian, it must have been very good. And he probably had the teams where everybody understood that the common purpose or the common goal of why they are there is to build a high quality software, solve the customer's problems. And their engineering culture and their business and the engineering interaction culture was really good. And those are the customers, those are the kind of people that I've also interacted with. But at scale, that's not how it is. So if you were to get into such a context where you have a different vision, you have a different idea of testing than what's happening in the organization, there are two things to do. One is, now that you learned that there can be cases like this, you put this question, or you have this as a criteria for your job search itself, and you go scouting for places that understand and value your thought process. Well, that's one way to do it. Okay, the other way to do it is that change is a very, very hard thing to bring in organizations who believe that they have cracked the formula of success. So, for example, in Motorola, where I was fired, they were obsessed to the Six Sigma and getting 98% test case pass. And that became their big blind spot. Now, while it might have initially worked for them, the blind spot that happened to them is they wanted to see 98% test case pass. And so if I did exploratory testing and I found bugs, they would ask me, is there a matching test case for this? And if there is no matching test case, instead of letting me report the bug, they would call it an invalid bug. So they have classified many crashes that I found as invalid because there was no matching test cases. And if they were to add the test cases, then they would not hit the 98% test case pass. So now, I wouldn't advise anybody to get fired. I know that there is a family to take care, and they need to be in a job. Don't run out of money. I know how it feels, right? At the same time, what I suggest is find a balance in within the company till you find the next job, or till you get invited, till you do things where people invite you. Okay, for example, if you were to blog, if you were to come to conferences and speak your thought process, there would be people who would ask you, hey, are you looking out for a job? Because they do similar thought process as yours, and they want to work with you. So that's the way for you to move from a place that is not aligned to your thought process to a place that is aligned to your thought process. So that's the reason why these conferences, these webinars, these opportunities are really good for you, because that gives you a visibility of others' thought process, and that gives others a visibility of your thought process. So yeah, so that's what I think.
Mm-hmm. So there are many more questions, Pradeep, but in the interest of time, I'm going to just take one last one. And to all the attendees and all those who have asked more questions, and if they haven't gotten a response here during the webinar, we are going to send these questions to Pradeep, and he could give us a response, and we'll post them on the site softwaretestpro.com for you to come back and actually look at the responses. All right, so here is our last question for the day, Pradeep. It's from Sudarshan. He says, what's your suggestion for the testers who are part of agile teams, how differently they should think from the waterfall model?
Okay, my biggest challenge in answering this question is I have seen so many different versions of agile so far that I don't know what you are referring to as agile. Okay, and being a tester on the agile team. Now I know, we talk about collaboration, be it agile or waterfall or whatever. If you figure out the value that you need to add, you would obviously find a need to collaborate. And getting the access, getting the necessary access to what the customer is doing in the product matters a lot. Now, I know a lot of testers in the agile teams who are focused on the sprint, all of that stuff. Okay, that's great. But there's an opportunity to ask the product owner, the scrum master, whoever, about, hey, can I look at the analytics of what users are doing, the flow that they're taking, the devices that they're using, the top 10 browsers that I can test on? Is there a change in the trend? Okay, taking access for crash analytics, taking access for the mix panel, which gives an idea of the flow and the crashes. I think those are the kind of things that will help refine your approach to testing. But despite talking about collaboration, I see broken teams, and the moment I see broken teams within and who claim to be agile, they are not. They're pretending to be agile. So I think you should remove the word agile or waterfall from your mind and focus on interacting with people and getting the information that is absolutely required to provide a great value. Yeah. So that's what my thought process is.
Thank you, Pradeep. So thanks for your time today. And it was a very helpful session on understanding a broader view of what's going on in testing world today. It was particularly interesting to see you bring up this the challenges of scaling up exploratory testing. So thanks again, Pradeep, and I hope to see you in California or other future conferences.
Absolutely. It was a great pleasure for me. And I really enjoyed this. It brought in some good memories, and I love the questions that people asked, and I'm really looking forward to meeting all of you in some conference. And yes, I would love to meet you in California. It's a great place.
Thanks, Pradeep. Well, everyone, this concludes our webinar for today, and thank you for joining. And more importantly, thanks for being so engaging and making the most of the webinar for yourself and for the whole group. Stay tuned for more webinars and online trainings coming soon. And if you haven't signed up yet for the upcoming webinar, which is Automated Exploratory Testing by Justin Eisen on 22nd of November, the link is up for registration at softwaretestpro.com. So go ahead. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week ahead, and see you all in California in April 2018.